Okay, I came across this very interesting article that I want to talk about when it comes to gaming in school, esports, all this other good stuff. And I want to give my thoughts and opinions about this because I thought this was pretty cool. Hayes USD 489 school approves esport program at Hayes High. Now, if you don't know anything about Hayes High, is a small high school in Kansas, so it's not anything that's on the map, so it's one of those things that you really have to dig and look for. Well, I was just on the internet just looking and I saw this and I thought this was really interesting. Shout out to Christina Janney on HayesPost.com. And I want to talk about this to get my thoughts and opinions. I find this extremely interesting when it comes to schools and gaming. The Hayes USD 49 School Board approved startup funds for an esports program at Hayes High School on Monday. The board approved $3,500 to purchase equipment, software, licensing, and related program expenses. The program will launch this fall. Thomas Decker, a Hayes High teacher, said 13 students has already expressed interest in the activity, which will be a Kansas High School Activity Association sponsored. Now, this is the thing. I'm not surprised. I thought it'd be more than 13 students would be interested in this, but this is almost a no-brainer. If you want kids to be kind of like intertwined with school and stuff, this is one of the best ways to do it. Now, could this be a distraction? Absolutely. This could be a situation where you could, get away from your studies because of trying to play these type of games. So it's going to be interesting how they're going to work this out and how this will work out for students in the future. Let's see. It says those students include freshmen through seniors. Participating students must meet KHSAA guidelines, including maintaining a C average or better. Personally, I think it should be higher, but nevertheless. Students will compete remotely on Nintendo Switch consoles except for the state championship, which is in person. So they got a state championship. So I'm thinking there could be more schools involved in this. It's just not, well, obviously it is an esports, so it got to be more than one school involved, but they're gonna have state championships for this. This is pretty interesting if they're gonna have this. Decker said about half of the students who have expressed interest are not involved in other school-sponsored activities. Okay. Hayes will be the fourth school in the WAC conference to add esports. So, like I said, there are more schools. So there's gonna be there's the fourth school. So they're gonna have. I guess that's enough to have a state champion. Yeah, four. But yeah, I can see this catching on like big time. The students will compete in Mario Kart, Rocket League Soccer, and Smash Bros, which is a brawling game, okay, Smash Bros, okay. The program also received the $2,000 grant. The district will pay the coach a $2,000 annual stipend. The season will run from fall through January. So like from the beginning of the school year to after Christmas, it'll run there. All practices will be after school. Decker said he hopes the program can give students who might not otherwise be involved in school activities a sense of community. Yeah, so if you're not into sports or whatever, hey, you can get in front of this computer or you can get in front of these video games and you can feel like you are representing the school in a different way where it could be aligned with like the sports side of things. I guess nowadays you look at esports, it is somewhat of a sport. Like right now, I'm looking at the Counter-Strike 2 esports, and that is amazing. I'm not gonna lie, I'm hooked on it. I cannot stop watching. I think it's something that a lot more people should watch. I mean, I know a lot of people watch it now, but I didn't know it was that enticing and that entertaining. I'm hooked on the esports when it comes to Counter Strike 2. And I know there's a lot of other ones out there, obviously like with Street Fighter and all the other fighting games. I think Trackmania, Rocket League, there's a lot of, esports out there. So yeah, this is really catching on, you know what I mean? He said esports encourages leadership and decision-making skills, which I do believe that. I think that's one thing that's a misconception about video games in general. People think video games are a thing where people are just nerd out and just be in front of these things and actually just lose their mind. There are games that do that, but there's a lot of games that actually teach you some cognitive skills. They actually have you learn about some problem solving. There's some things out there that actually teach you about, leading people in certain directions, especially if you're doing an esport team game. Like I said, I see it all the time with the Counter-Strike thing. I mean, it is a really big deal. So that's interesting. So resident Becky Hill spoke against the proposal during public comment for portion of the meeting. She said she was concerned about additional screen time would be detrimental to students. And that is an absolute great point. I'm not going to sit here and say this is all good, because something like this is a really big deal when you're looking at, screen time, distractions, actually being all in on these type of things could fry your brain. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that being in front of these games are absolutely phenomenal and it does nothing. There's a downside to everything, and this is one of them. Like, I do agree. Like, even with my son or whatever, or like, I don't really have him being on his tablet all the time. He doesn't play games all day. We do have like a balance. So, but when kids are actually being in this position where they're like in esports and they're actually playing these games for, competition, and on top of that with their schoolwork, and also possibly having like a social life when they are on their phones and tablets, it could be a lot. So Miss Hill is not wrong, so this is a situation where it is really it's something to really think about. At the end of the day, the board approved the proposal 6-0. Board member Derek Yarmer was absent, so I guess it's supposed to be 7-0. So, but or whatever. But at the end of the day, I look at it like this: this is actually a pretty solid thing overall. I don't see nothing crazy about it. It just has to be regulated very well. Like, these kids can't go off the rails doing this. And I do think it will help, with, just an added layer of togetherness, or some other activity that these kids can do in school, because outside of like sports, like, some kids feel like they're not really doing much. This will give them an outlet to actually, be more expansive in their mind or whatever. So I do think this is a really good thing, but I do understand like the concern Miss Hill said, like, not only just with the time with the screen, it's like other things as well. It's a lot of other stuff that goes along with it. So yeah, so I'm curious of what your thoughts about this. Did you know anything about this? Is this something that you may be interested in if it was in your district? Like, what are your thoughts? Me personally, I wouldn't have my son do this while in school. I wouldn't, because he has enough games here. He doesn't need that as well to intertwine. I would probably have him in another activity. I mean, he likes basketball anyway, so he'd probably be playing basketball. But, that's just me. Other students may not want to play sports, so it could be a different situation for them. So, like I said, at the end of the day, what are your thoughts about this? And you guys let me know, and I'll see you on the next one. All right, y'all. Peace.